This thing hits.
Player, two.
Players?
Two.
Back up. Push him. Oh!
You call me a bitch!
I don't trust nobody in the DZ, man. I'm sorry. You're running up on me while you ain't got no bag and we extracted. It's a wrap.
Can you hear me in game chat or no?
Go, we are 4 eyes alone.
Hey. Oh, someone brought their boy. Okay, I'm too close.
Someone's coming. That was clutch.
Hey YouTube, it's Be Righteous from Identity with another Division 2 video. In this week's video, I'd like to present to you a build that I put a lot of thought into. It's another hybrid, and it takes a bit more attention to detail than many of the other builds I've made. If you're new to my channel and interested in builds from DPS all the way to skill which encompass PvP and PvE alike, then please drop a like and hit that subscribe button. I'd love to have you. Now, I know many of you must have been waiting for someone to drop a build surrounding the Sawyer's exotic knee pads. Not just a build in which the knee pads simply sit in your loadout, but one that has purpose and works in perfect harmony alongside your build. The Disruptor utilizes a skill often viewed as a pariah amongst the other Pulse variants, but in this build is used in full effect. It's best run with a team of 4, but also has the ability to run solo. With this, you and your squad can coordinate attacks without uttering a word. As your team moves in silence, disrupting agents whilst destroying their skills is key. With this build, you're able to utilize 3 skills all at once, and it's only made possible by using the Technician specialization. The purpose of this build is to take the leadership role on the battlefield. The assets that accompany this setup encourage team shooting, which is extremely important in both PvP and PvE. Running this right, I'm sure will yield satisfying results for you and your team. This build has a lot of moving parts and it was a bit difficult to construct. At first, I didn't know its purpose or direction, but now I know exactly what it is, and honestly, it has exceeded my expectations. Like my previous Liberty build, the Disruptor is a hybrid, so it enables you to accomplish many objectives simultaneously to greatly benefit you and your squad. So let's get right into how I put this together. For the weapons, I used the Carbine 7, the Culebre, and the Liberty exotic pistol. Now there's a specific reason why I use this Carbine 7. I have Ranger and optimized on it because with this build you want to be at a distance kind of. So that's why optimized is an important talent to have, so you can hit your shots consistently from a distance, and this is where your maximum damage comes from. And also because the Carbine 7 is one of many long barrel weapons, and with the Technician specialization, they have, I think, the best attachment out of all the specializations, which is this laser pointer. Technician laser pointer that pulses targets at which it's aimed. Underbarrel attachment for long barrels only. And this is one of the reasons why I use the Carbine 7. You can use it with, I think, the P416, the AK, I think the Police M4, and a few other ones. And that's one of the reasons why I have this Culebre, because you can also put the laser pointer on the Culebre, any shotgun, because the shotguns are long barreled as well. So with both of these weapons, I'm going to be pulsing enemies that I just aim at, which gives me extra damage. And that's why I said with this build you're able to utilize 3 skills at once. The build for the mask, I have the Night Watcher named Gila mask with perfect spotter, gives you 20% weapon damage to pulse targets. So you don't even have to use pulse, but you're getting the benefits of spotter just by aiming at your enemy. So at all times you'll have 20% extra damage when you're aiming at your enemy because of this laser pointer that you have on your weapons. So essentially, Pulse turns into a passive talent instead of an active talent that's available at all times. So you end up becoming a scout for your team, one that spots everybody. And that's why I said that you and your team move in silence without uttering a word, because you can be that guy that leads the charge by aiming at the person you want your team to shoot. So this combination alone right here, this pulse, without having to use pulse, is just amazing. That's like one of the best combinations I've seen so far. For the chest piece, I have a Fenris. The Stridvast I think might be good depending on what you're going for, but it was really hard for me to get my armor up in this build. 300k is good for me because it's in hybrid, so I was able to have 300k armor along with 3000 skill power. And if I have better rolls than this, then I will be able to get way more armor. But we all know how RNG works in this game, and it's very hard to get exactly what you need. So I was fortunate to have this on one of my other characters. I rolled 15% weapon damage on it. It has Berserk on it to compete with the other builds out here to get extra damage when I take damage. So if you're at a distance and you're taking damage along with Ranger and Pulse 20%, you're going to be doing massive damage to your enemy. And I have hard hitting on here to complement the 50% damage to least I have on my mask. For the holster, I have Alp Summit. It comes with skill haste and skill power. I have a 2-piece, and I'm going to tell you a little later why I specifically chose Alp Summit. But Alp Summit, man, is one of my favorite brand sets. It has so much to it. I mean, look at this. It has an attribute, a talent, and 2 mod slots. I mean, the Gila has no talent and has 2 mod slots, and this has 1 offensive and 1 utility, so it's really versatile. I think you should look at this whenever you get a chance. Backpack, Alp Summit backpack as well, with Harden and On the Ropes. Before TU6, we all know the pandemic of 3.11.7 when people were using Pulse and Spotter on the ropes, doing crazy amounts of damage. Now, this skill is no longer stackable, but with the laser pointer attachment, Spotter is active at all times. So whatever damage you're doing, anything else that you have is going to stack on top of that. So you have Pulse Spotter again. So do you see all this damage that's happening at one time? You got Ranger when you're at a distance. You have Spotter 20% with the named mask, and you have On the Ropes. And Berserk when you take damage. The damage potential in this build is very good. Gloves. I know I have these gloves in a lot of my builds, and that's because they're very good. I really like Firm Handshake. It just has a lot of advantages to it. You got Perfectly Wicked that gives you 20% weapon damage when somebody's affected by a status, and you have all these different weapon damage types, specifically assault rifle damage because I'm using the Carbine 7. Alright, here we go. The Sawyer's Exotic knee pads. I don't know how a lot of you people feel about it. I've been hearing about people giving these away and just telling me they're useless, but I have no idea what they're talking about. These knee pads are great. I love these things. First talent is called Short Circuit. It gives you 80% jammer pulse charge speed, which means that as soon as you use that pulse, 1 second, then it's charged up. So what you need to do is add 1 radius mod and 1 skill haste mod, so you can have a big enough radius for the area. And in 1 second, whatever radius percentage you have, it's going to fill that whole space. So what makes these knee pads so good is that this first wave tech talent, it completely destroys any hostile skills or proxies. So normally the jammer pulse, all it does is jams skills, but this completely destroys it, which changed the game completely. And then when you get in cover after staying in there for 4 seconds, you gain the lead by example buff, which is gives you 50% armor, bonus armor, while performing the cover to cover. And when you hit that cover, when you hit that opposite cover, it releases a disrupt by default. So the skills that I use are the jammer pulse and the chem launcher. Okay, and so essentially I have 3 skills because I'm using the pulse as well, and I'm gaining damage for that. The reason why I have Alp Summit is because Alp Summit gives you skill haste, and for some reason the jammer pulse has the longest cooldown out of all three of the pulses. I had max skill haste. I had like 127% skill haste, and I got my cooldown to 20 seconds, and I think that's the max. So I had to sacrifice some skill haste for some skill power and armor, so now the cooldown is 26.2 seconds, which is okay, you know, because the standard DPSer or anybody else who uses a skill, when they use their skill and I disrupt it and destroy it, their cooldown is going to be longer than my cooldown, first of all. And second of all, a lot of people use the Striker Drone just to activate Spark. The Jammer Pulse combined with the Sawyer's knee pads destroys skills completely. So if you can get rid of a drone before it's able to shoot you, this eliminates the ability for your opponent to gain 15% extra damage from Spark, automatically giving you an advantage over them. And I think that the Jammer Pulse is a bit underused. And one reason I believe that it's underused is because after you set it off, the actual disrupt status effect does nothing to hinder your enemies in any way, with the exception to the red and purple NPCs, because they bend down and they drop down to the floor when you disrupt them. Besides them, your opponent's screen doesn't turn red like bleed, nor does it force you to walk if you're shooting while caught on fire. This, amongst other reasons, is why it's difficult to conform to this playstyle. And this is why keeping your distance and playing calculated is the best course of action, especially with the ability to pulse by simply aiming at your enemy. When you do that, this is where Ranger and Optimize are at their best. You see where I'm going with this, right? There are a lot of moving parts to this build, so I'm trying to give you the information as best as I can, so I hope you're following me. Now, the Chem Launcher is a good skill to have. I know in one of my previous builds videos I said that I think they nerfed this, and so the heal isn't as good as it was, and it's not as good as it was, but it's still good if you have high heal mods. And I'm also using it specifically for on the ropes, because when you use a chem, your ammo cooldown is considered your skill being on cooldown, so you get on the ropes activated with Spotter with the Chem Launcher heal. So this is the best heal to use with this build. That's all I have for this build. It's a really different way to play. You got to play more calculated than normal. You got to play smart, and you have to coordinate with your team. So if you're all about that, then this build is for you. Let me know down in the comments what you think about this build, because it's definitely different from normally what I play, but I really like it because it tests my skill and it makes me a better player, and it makes me a more patient player, and that's always good for tactical shooters. I appreciate you watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Be right out.